Well, just this last December, a new bilateral security agreement came into force, which covers a comprehensive raft of activities and different elements of support that Australia will be providing to Papua New Guinea in the military space, in the police space, non-traditional security challenges to do with climate change and even gender-based violence, for example. So we do have a comprehensive suite of activities in place. This new treaty is less about expanding that scope of activities and more about locking in some perhaps mutual obligations between the two parties.
What is it that Australia is hoping to achieve with all of these agreements, but particularly with this new defence treaty?
The key element is that for the last couple of years, Australia has been trying to build strategic insulation around itself and in the Pacific in particular, pushing back against China's increasingly obvious strategic intent to expand its military access and its security access and influence into the Pacific. So this agreement is about, clarifying what would have otherwise been mutual understandings or assumptions about commitments that Australia has with Pacific countries and the commitments that Pacific countries themselves hold with respect to Australian and regional security as well. So it's about demarcating very clearly in a legal sense mutual obligations. So we're thinking in particular about activities involving third countries. So not to put too blunt a point on it, but China, for example. Australia is looking to make it increasingly difficult for China to enter into sensitive security agreements with Pacific countries. That's what this agreement is about.
And what does Papua New Guinea get out of these agreements with Australia?
Well, Papua New Guinea, of course, has some pretty deep security needs, not so much on the defence side, but in particular internal security to do with law enforcement, extensive and long-running bouts of organised violence in various highly populated regions within Papua New Guinea. It's looking for support in their maritime security domain as well, transnational crime, illegal fishing, those sorts of things.
This defence treaty that's going into negotiations at the moment is, as we've said, going into negotiation. Do we know how long this could take and exactly what sort of detail might be in a final treaty?
So it's important to remember that for the bilateral security agreement that Australia was able to negotiate with Papua New Guinea last year, that came into force in December, the initial ambition, at least on the Australian side, was for that to be a treaty-level document. So this is essentially a rerun for Australia at attempting to achieve the highest level of cooperation agreement between two countries, a legally binding treaty. So that's the key element here. So, it's difficult to anticipate what new areas of cooperation will be identified that haven't already been covered. Again, it's really about getting Papua New Guinea to commit to some sort of assurance to providing Australia an assurance that it won't enter into a similar agreement with a country that would have a negative effect on Australia's and regional security as well. And of course, Australia would be making that mutual obligation.
On a slightly separate note, Mihai, we've been reporting this morning about 3 ships belonging to the Chinese Navy sailing about 300 kilometres east of Sydney. What is the Chinese military doing here, and is this something to be concerned about?
Well, this is a signal from China that it can pretty much take its warships anywhere it wants to in our near region. And if you're looking for evidence as to why would Canberra embark on a second set of negotiations with Papua New Guinea, this is all the evidence that you need, basically. Right now, the Pacific is still highly contested in strategic terms. And for the last couple of years, Australia has been looking to bed down not just its own access for the sake of regional security, but pushing back on the access of other countries that are deemed to have a negative impact on that security, that are deemed to challenge established regional rules and whose actions may not be in the best interests of the Pacific or Australia. So these warships are about intimidating Australia and about China demonstrating that it can do as it pleases in our near region.
Mihai Sora from the Lowy Institute. Appreciate your analysis this morning. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.